Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way on this episode of Off 90. We meet a metal sculptor from Hastings. We visit a city rich with Minnesota history. And we take a look through the past at a Minnesota orphanage. It's all just ahead, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Off 90. Choosing to live as a sculptor came later in life for Dale Lewis than it usually does for artists. Dale was in his upper 50s when he decided to take a more creative direction with his life. His first sculptures were pieces made from hand-me-down materials given to him by his sister, who was also an artist, which led him to build many other nature-inspired creations.
I've never had any art training. This is all, I'm a self-taught artist, and how I would describe my style is not to take anything too serious. You know, I think art should be entertaining. If it makes people smile, they'll probably remember it. My name is Dale Lewis. I'm a welded metal sculptor in Hastings, Minnesota. It was something I could get into with a small amount of equipment and make something that was very durable. I knew a little bit of welding. I'm not a welder. People assume I am because I weld quite large pieces, but I've had a couple basic welding classes, so I'll get by. I'm 61 years old now, and I finally figured out what I want to do when I grow up. And it's going to be sculptures. You know, I feel like I got started late in my life, you know. Part of the reason I did was because I had time. There's no other point in time where I could have spent the number of years starting to do this without an income than when I got to retirement age. So it is what it is, but I feel kind of pressured to do as much as I can since I found something I like doing while I still have time to do it. And it surprises me how fast it's, you know, I've progressed on the sizes and the number of sculptures I do and stuff, but it's a passion for me. Really, my main source material is salvage materials, and a lot of friends pass things off to me. I have an electrician friend that scrounges things on job sites, you know, out of dumpster diving. I also get things from scrap yards. I'm always trying to build more contacts in that way. The reason I choose my pieces is there's no easy answer. Sometimes I got something in mind that I really want to make, or somebody has a request. A lot of times it's more material driven, where I end up, because my things are pretty much made out of salvage materials. When I get a large quantity of something, I look for the ideal piece. And try to merge the two, you know. And usually when I get an idea for the right material and I know it's good, it's automatic. I know it's going to be good. A lot of the pieces they surprise me. You know, because I started with a vague vision of what's going on, and it usually seems to work out, but it takes on a life of its own, and I'm surprised sometimes how it works out. The other thing that really makes it fun is I hear from people repeatedly that my pieces make them smile, and that's what really makes it worthwhile. Is that people enjoy it, and it makes it fun for me. You know, I started out making like little dragonflies, steak sculptures out of butter knives with, you know, wing silverware handles for wings and glass eyes, you know, and sell them for 20 bucks a piece or something. And they're kind of cute, and you know, you stick them in the garden or flower beds and stuff. But these larger pieces are really what I enjoy doing, what I want to do, and the sculpture walks are my outlet. My advice is that you don't know if you can do it till you actually try. You know, people think, oh, tell me, oh, you're so talented and things. Well, it wasn't like it was a lifelong passion or I knew I could do it or anything else. It's just that you don't really know unless you try. And in the worst case, you end up with it was already junk to begin with, you know, you can always scrap it.
Frontenac was one of the first permanently settled communities in Minnesota. The picturesque scenery overlooking the Mississippi River soon began to attract wealthy residents. It became a community of summer homes with views of the river. Frontenac never grew too far beyond a small town. It's a little community fixed in history.
It's the little secret that most people don't know because it's not on the highway. It's not some place where most people would look to find a little village that's different than many villages. My name is Bill Webster, and I live in the village of Old Frontenac. Frontenac is a village on the shore of Lake Pepin, which the Mississippi River runs through, between the villages of Red Wing on the north and Lake City on the south. Frontenac today is a quaint little village. It hasn't changed. There are no street lights. We do have street signs, but the gravel roads and the grassy boulevards and the stone fence or lilac hedges, the older homes, the people that have come to Frontenac, still some of the same families that were originally here are still living in Frontenac. It's almost as if time has stopped. It's not really much different than when it was a village 100 years ago. The first voyager to arrive in this area was Father Hennepin in 1680 when he came down from Quebec. The French were attempting to beat the English to the midsection of what they thought was a great country, and they would bring troops out here and build a fort. When Father Hennepin went back to report what he had seen, said that in all of France's conquests, they had never seen the beauty that they saw in the area around Lake Pepin. Israel Garrard, of the Garrard family from Cincinnati, Ohio, came out in order to go west with his brother to find farming or ranching properties. Israel had the background, a law background for one, and he also had a background in surveying because his grandfather surveyed the city of Cincinnati. Over a period of time, he built this village to build a tourist resort, but then to live here and raise his family. And that's what enticed his brothers to come out with him later, and also his stepbrother. Israel Garrard was a very generous person and would invite people to come to Frontenac in the summertime to enjoy it, but realized that his house was not large enough. And so he took a grain elevator that was down on the point where the steamboats would land, and he moved it up higher into a little higher ground, and that became the first hotel and actually the first summer resort in Minnesota when it was called the Lakeside Hotel. And they could house up to 300 people, as many as 300 people with the hotel and the cottages. Well, Mark Twain indicated that he stayed at the hotel, as did Ulysses S. Grant, and quite a number of very prominent people, writers, poets. Mark Twain said that no beauty found elsewhere equals that of Lake Pepin. River traffic was the key to the establishment of all the commerce that eventually came to St. Paul and Minneapolis. So all the paddle wheelers would have to come through Lake Pepin. So the hotel itself was pulling people from a distance to stay for the summer, and it became known as a great summer resort and the place to be. One of the attractions for people coming from the east was that it resembled the Hudson River Valley, only the high precipitous bluffs on both sides of the river were about twice as high as those along the Hudson. General Garrard at one time had 27 horses, and he encouraged other people to bring their horses because there was a racing track out by the railroad at Frontenac Station. They also had pigeon shooting in the park, and of course buggy rides and boat rides, sailboat races. It was a full summer experience that people enjoyed. And many of the people would rent one of the cottages for a month or two in the summertime. So whole families would come and stay. They'd either come by the steamer, later they would come by the rail car. When the Civil War broke out, the Garrard family felt that they should do something and fight for the North. Israel, Jephthah, Kenner, and Lewis, along with their mother, Sarabella Garrard McLean, met in Dr. Lewis's house. Mrs. Garrard decided that because Lewis had poor eyesight, and the fact that he was a doctor, and also very good on the finances of the Garrard family business here, that he should stay home. So the other three went. Kenner went automatically because he had gone to West Point and was called in. Jephthah and Israel both formed companies. The three of those brothers, plus their stepbrother, Nathaniel McLean, all fought in battles throughout the Civil War. None of them were injured. They all came back to Frontenac and had homes here for a while. But the little village of Frontenac had, at one time, had 4 generals from the Civil War. When Israel brought his wife to Frontenac, they soon had 2 children. And she became expecting a third, and unfortunately, in 1869, she passed away. She was buried in what is called the Garrard Circle, which is at the far end of the cemetery. Garrard Avenue is 8 blocks long. Of the houses on Garrard Avenue, several of them were built in the 1850s. Starting on the north is Dr. Lewis Garrard's house, called Dakota Cottage. The next house is Winona Cottage, and that was built by Israel as a wedding present for his son George Wood Garrard. And that was built in 1878. The house south of George Wood Garrard's is Israel Garrard's, and that was built in 1854. I am the third William B. Webster to live in the same house, preceded by my father and my grandfather. It was built in 1858 for the mother of the 4 Garrard brothers. Sarabella Garrard married John McLean, who was the Postmaster General at one time, and then on the U.S. Supreme Court. At the time of the Dred Scott decision, again, we're asked often about the longevity. You know, why do people stay? Why do second and third generation people come back to Frontenac? And I think, it's just the pace of life. Frontenac is now surrounded by this Frontenac State Park, so it can't grow. In the 1870s, the railroad was coming up the Mississippi River. General Garrard decided that he wouldn't allow them to come through the land. And that's why the railroad is 2 miles offshore, where the rest of the railroad is all along the river all the way to St. Paul. In the 1970s, Frontenac was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Not only the individual houses that are here, but the whole community. I think I could find happiness almost anywhere. But when I wake up in the morning and look out over Lake Pepin at any season, I feel blessed.
The Minnesota State Public School for Dependent and Neglected Children operated in Owatonna from 1886 until 1945. During that time, it housed more than 10,000 children who were orphaned, abused, or whose parents were unable to care for them. The school grounds have since been converted into a museum and several community buildings. But the memories of the old days remain.
I'm Harvey Ronglin, and I came here in 1932 and stayed till 1943. I was 5 when I came and 16 when I left. We were wards of the state. I was here for 11 years, some were here for 18 years, some were here for probably just a week. Kids would come and go almost every day. It was a very busy place, and all the time that I was here, I believe it was full. I would just like to say that I personally liked the state school. And a lot of kids hated the state school. I'm saying that because every child looked at it different. And when I speak for myself. All the time that I was here, there'd be about 500 children here. And we had 16 cottages, and there was always about 30 to 40 to a cottage. The cottage is where we actually lived. C11 was built for 26 kids in 1926. And the littlest kids doubled up. So actually, there were 30 to 35 kids in that cottage all the time that I was there. Naturally, there was different ones coming and going almost all the time. I feel good. Here, C1, C2, and C11. Each one of them had their own playgrounds. We couldn't, and they were all the same age, but we couldn't play with the other cottages. That was a cardinal sin to leave your playground. Anyway, that's how it was run, and everything was very orderly. It has to be. You can't let the monkeys run the zoo, that's for sure, and they didn't. Every cottage was different. Your whole life depended on your matron. A matron lived right with you. That was a middle-aged woman usually. I was in 5 different cottages up here. Miss Morgan was very hard and very strict. And I think she was the worst matron on the grounds myself. Other kids will argue with me, but I'll back up that I had Morgan. And I'll show them that picture. Well, anyway, my last year here then, I think I had the best matron on the grounds over in the C3, which was called the Mean Boys Cottage. Julia Keefe, her name was. She wouldn't know how to hit you if her life depended on it. She got hired right here. C3 is right there. By the time she walked from the offices to C3, 2 different employees had told her, "You won't last a week here with those kids." She fooled them. She lasted till the institution closed.
I came here in, like Harvey did, I was 5 years old. I came here in 1935. And I came here with my sister. She was 4 and I was 5. Well, the first thing they did, they split us up, and I don't know where she went, but I went to Cottage 2. Quite a place, yeah. My old home. When I got there, I found out that I had 2 brothers there. I was placed out in a farm there with my brother Buzz for 4 years. And that was a very experience. She took a horse harness on me. I don't think there was a day I was there she didn't whip me with that horse harness. But you get over it. Once you start getting the beatings, you know, it doesn't hurt anymore. You just holler so they quit. So, and that's what we did. They just take the beating and holler until she quit beating you. And then just move on.
And we have our own cemetery. There's 198 children buried out there. When you came here, you were numbered, by the way. And they were buried with just their number. And my wife and I, with the help of the city, we've seen to it that those 151 kids got a cross and their name on that cross, so that at least they would be remembered for being here and living.
This is my childhood, this was my home. I always figured it as my home, away from home. I figure I had a good way, a good upbringing. I had got educated, and like Harvey said, I have good food, good everything, and good playmates and stuff. And I liked it here. I have no ill feelings about ever being here. But I too, when I got out, went astray.
I have a picture of 23 kids, and I don't know what happened to 16 of those kids, but every single kid on that picture that I know what happened to them, every single one of them was an alcoholic or went to prison or both. Why would so many kids from C11 turn out like that? It had to be the atmosphere they were raised in. I myself went to alcohol treatment 32 years ago. The culture of the state school was upside down as far as boys. See, if you were a good student, you were actually made fun of in the cottage because you were nothing but a bookworm. Everything depended on who was the toughest kid. There was a pecking order. You find out where you fit in that pecking order. You have to prove yourself. And see, a lot of the kids didn't realize that what made you a big shot here didn't work when they got out of the state school, because it's a different world. We were raised under the same written rules as a prison. The strong rule, no snitching, that's a cardinal sin, and it's you against authority. If you pull off something on authority, you're a hero, and so on, so you're looked up to.
One of the biggest rewards is that it has given the children and grandchildren of state schoolers to come back and learn what was it like for their relative to live here when it was an orphanage. Who say, you know, I had no idea, because Grandpa would never talk about it, Grandma. See, so many of them they just wanted to block out. They don't want to remember, because for many of them it was heart-wrenching times, which dramatically affected their adult lives.
That's all for this episode. If you enjoy programs like Off 90, please show your support by becoming a member of KSMQ Public Television. Keep local programming vibrant in southern Minnesota. Give us a call at 507-481-2095 or 1-800-658-2539, or sign up online at ksmq.org. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.